Hi, I'm Miss Tyler and welcome to Context for Kids Torah Portion Chukat. Why are we doing Torah Portion Chukat? Because I skipped it last year, and I don't know why, because it's an incredibly interesting Torah portion, and it has some stuff that I really want to cover for you, especially since it ties in to the gospel studies that we're doing this year and next year and the year after that, and for the rest of my life probably. Alright, so Torah Portion Chukat. Did Moses make a graven image? Well, first of all, what is a graven image? Talk about the second commandment. And you shall not make for yourself a graven image and bow down to it. You shall not make an image of anything that is in the sea or in the skies or in the land, the waters below or the land, blah, 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 blah. And worship it. Okay? So, second commandment says, no making a graven image and worshiping it. But God's going to ask Moses to do something really interesting in this Torah portion. He's going to have him make a carved snake. What the heck? Alright. Okay, so Torah portion Chukat is Numbers 19:1 to 22:1. And it has some incredibly important things in it. It's got the red heifer, which we talked about earlier in the week, actually, with the bridge going over from the temple across the Kidron Valley onto the Mount of Olives. That's where they burned the red heifer after slaughtering it in the temple. That was the heifer where if you were in the same room with a corpse, you had ritual impurity, and you couldn't go to the temple until you'd been ritually cleansed of that death. And the ashes of the red heifer did that. That's what they did. And I said it was Numbers 16, Numbers 19. If you turn over the 6, 9. It's just, I was a little upside down. Alright. So, also we've got the death of Miriam. Now, that is the older sister of Moshe and Aaron. She was a prophetess. Okay? And she was the first of the 3 to die. Because that entire generation had to die in the wilderness after refusing to go into the land, and after Moses whacked the rock to get water out instead of talking to it, and he actually took credit for it. He says, I have to get the water out of the rock? Oh, Moses. You know what? Those people were gooberheads, and I understand why he got frustrated. Sometimes when we're frustrated, we say and do things we shouldn't do, and that was a very serious one. But what would we also have? We have fiery serpents. Well, what on earth is a fiery serpent? Great googly moogly. Aren't, snakes bad enough without being on fire? So are they on fire? Or do they just bite and it feels like burning? I don't know. There's different theories. It's not the kind of thing I would ever want to find out from personal experience, because if I see a snake coming up to bite me and it's on fire, I'll probably just faint dead away. What about you? What would you do? Okay, so we're going to read, and I'm going to put up the PowerPoints for you to see and read along with me. Numbers 21, verses 4 through 9. From Mount Hor, this is when they left Sinai. They're leaving Sinai now. From Mount Hor they set out by the way to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. No. Not Sinai. Goodness sakes. Having one of those mornings. Okay, to go around the land of Edom. And the people became impatient on the way. Uh-oh. Impatient on the way. Can we say, oh no. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we loathe this worthless food. Wait. What have they been eating? Do they have no food? Do they have no water? They've been having manna every morning. They gather as much as they can eat. Quail come down on the camp every evening. Are you kidding me? They get water from a rock directly from God. let's look again at what they said. And not only that, but they were slaves in Egypt. Pharaoh was even killing their baby boys for a while. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt? Well, maybe so that your baby boys wouldn't die anymore. Okay, to die in the wilderness. The reason you're dying in the wilderness is, because you refuse to go into the land. It's your own fault. They're blaming God for the consequences of their own actions. They're forgetting how bad it was in Egypt. For there is no food and no water. Oh yes, there is. They're calling what God is giving them nothing. And we loathe this worthless food. Oh no, they didn't. Oh no, they didn't. God has supernaturally cared for them in the desert. He has protected them from their enemies. Their clothes don't wear out. Their sandals don't wear out. He's got his presence right there in the midst of them. He took them out of slavery. He destroyed Pharaoh and Pharaoh's army. He has fed them night and day for over a year. And it's good food. Quail? Now that's what they're serving in the fancy restaurants right now. And that manna tasted like fine honey cakes with coriander. Hello. That sounds really, yeah. Okay. Worthless. And water. All the water they need for themselves and their flocks. Worthless. And let me go on. Alright? They've got flocks. Alright? So you see where I'm going with this. If they wanted more food, kill some of the livestock you have. Oh no, we want free food, because they were all on that before. We want the leeks and onions and fish that we got for free in Egypt. Free for working like slaves for 250 euros. So next time you're whining about something, stop and think. Wait. Am I just being incredibly ungrateful? Be careful. Be careful and make sure your complaints are true and justified before you do it. It'll get rid of most of your complaints, let me guarantee you. Alright, so, had my little sermon there. Then the Lord, see, I can imagine up in heaven, and he said, I have had enough. Then the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, so that many people of Israel died. And we feel so sorry for them, right? That was pretty cheeky, telling God that not only did they have no food, but the food he was giving them was worthless when they had all those flocks. And see, I'm going again. These people make me angry. And the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he will take away the serpents for us. So Moses prayed for the people. And the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, they shall live. Okay, so Moses has to make a bronze serpent. This is a molded or an engraved image. Okay? Or maybe image is the wrong word. But it is a carved snake. Now the second commandment says you're not to make a graven image of anything that is on the earth or below the seas or in the heavens or in the skies. God just told him to do it. And the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on a pole. And you can see these guys saying, hurry, Moses! The fiery serpents are coming closer. We are feeling the heat. And if a serpent bit anyone, he would look at the bronze serpent and live. Okay. God would never tell anyone to break a commandment. So there must be more to the second commandment than meets the eye. Because God told Moses to make a graven image. Just, it's right there. That's not the only place that God tells somebody to make an engraved image either. But let's see, what happens with this pole later? So the people all looked at the serpent, they looked up at the serpent on the pole if they were bit, and they lived. Let's look at 2 Kings 18:4. This is talking about Hezekiah, the king. Hundreds of years later, Hezekiah, removed the high places and broke down the pillars and cut down the Asherah. And he broke in pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made. For until those days, the people of Israel had made offerings to it. It was called Nehushtan. All right. God told Moses to make something. Moses built a graven image at the Lord's command, and it was misused. There's nothing wrong with making that serpent. God told him to make it. To refuse to make it would be sin. When God tells you directly to do something, just do it. Just do it. Okay? And so Moses did it. Years later, people took that bronze serpent and set it up as an idol and were worshiping to it and making offerings to it. That is wrong. That is the difference between carving something and violating the second commandment. It was the bowing down to it, worshiping, making offerings to this that changed this from being obeying God's commandments or, just doing something beneficial, or carving something which is harmless and carving something that is later bowed down to. What Moses did still wasn't wrong. What the people did was wrong because they took something beneficial that was a commandment of God and they made it into an idol. They made it into an idol. It wasn't originally an idol. Not all engraved images are idols. This proves that. When they took it and they were offering to it, that made it an idol. Wasn't an idol until that happened. All right. So Moses built a graven image at the Lord's command, and it was misused. Hezekiah had to destroy it. It also talks in that verse about Asherah, and you'll see it translated as Asherah pole. That's a theory. Asherah were wooden, we know that. We don't know if it was an actual tree in a sacred grove or a potted tree or whatever, but fertility symbols were always living. Sacred groves, it's like you don't cut down the sacred fertility tree because then it's not fertile anymore. We talked about that when we did the menorah teaching. There was one in Leviticus, and I can't remember which one it was, but we talked about tree of life symbolism in the menorah in the temple. Rule number 1 of Tree of Life Club: do not cut down the tree of life, or it's not a tree of life anymore, it's tree of death. And pagans would have understood that, and they did. Anyway, what did I do? Squirrel. Okay. Asherah, although it's translated as poles, we have zero documentation from anywhere as to what this thing was. Except it's wood. That's all we know. So it was probably a sacred tree, but no one knows for sure, and they were abused. So if it was a tree, there's nothing wrong with a tree. But if you worship the tree, then it becomes idolatrous. Okay? Anything can be made into an idol. Anything. The Ark of the Covenant was topped with 2 cherubim, carved figures, engraved images. And Solomon's temple had 2 huge cherubim guarding each side of the ark. Well, why did Solomon build those? I'll tell you why. All right. Whoops, not yet. It's not the next slide. Okay, now Exodus 25:19. This is talking about the actual lid on the Ark of the Covenant. Make 1 cherub on one end and 1 cherub on the other end Of one piece with the mercy seat shall you make the cherubim on its two ends. Okay, so these were commanded images. Of course, anyone who worshipped them there in the Holy of Holies is probably just going to die right there. Never happened. We have no records of anyone ever misusing the Ark of the Covenant. Well, except for Hophni and Phinehas in 1 Samuel. But they died, and they didn't use it for idolatrous. They were just goober heads and took it into battle that was, no, we're not going to do this. I just taught that to someone this week, and so now I'm going on. All right, you're used to me. That was Exodus 25:19, talking about the two graven cherubim on top. All right, so let's talk about 1 Chronicles 28, verses 18 and 19. We're going to talk about the two cherubim that Solomon was actually commanded to make and to put in the Holy of Holies of the temple once that was finally built. But these were given, this was part of the instructions that the word says were given to David we're going to get to that. I'm getting ahead of myself. And also his plan for the golden chariot of the cherubim that spread their wings and covered the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. Okay, this is not talking about him making a common misconception. There's only ever been one Ark of the Covenant. There have been multiple menorahs. There have been multiple tables of showbread. There have been multiple altars of incense. All right? There's only ever been one Ark of the Covenant. Only one. They never remade it because you couldn't replace what was inside it. And they know it exists somewhere. And the Talmud even says that they know where. And I could even tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. No, kidding. We'll talk about it some other time. All this is David speaking. All this he, God, made clear to me in writing from the hand of the Lord, all the work to be done according to plan. So we have the blueprints for Solomon's temple, the temple that Solomon built, were given to David in writing by the hand of the Lord. Whoa! Has God ever given you anything in writing from his hand? Not me. Nope. So anyway, that's 1 Chronicles 28:18 through 19. Very important. The things that were done in the temple that was finally put on the Temple Mount, it was all the services and all the extras, and it was far grander than the tabernacle. It was all in writing from the hand of the Lord. Okay. So what's the difference between the we'll talk about it in a bit. Gotta tie this to Yeshua, Jesus. All right. Here's the difference between the second commandment and the making of the bronze serpent and the making of the cherubim on top of the ark and the huge cherubim to each side of the ark. Idolatry is intentional. God wouldn't tell Moses to break the second commandment and make an idol. So evidently there's a difference between making something that's engraved and idolatry. People take good things, like the bronze serpent, and use them for bad purposes, like sacred trees. You know, a grove of trees isn't evil. Okay? Idolatry is intentional. All right. Idols were thought to be filled with the life force of a god of some sort or some sort of magical power, okay? They were given credit for God's work. Toys don't qualify. So let's talk about Luke Skywalker here. I like Star Wars. Except for the episodes 1, 2, and 3. Don't even get me going on that. All right. So, is this an engraved image? Well, it's a molded image because they poured plastic into the mold. Okay? And he's agreeing with me right now. Okay? Thank you, Luke. All right. So, what do I do with this? Well, he just sits on my shelf. I just think he's cute. He makes me laugh. Okay? I don't ask him any questions. I don't pray to him. I don't set out any food, which is, now he's not getting any thinner, so obviously it's not affecting him. I haven't taken a dagger and I haven't performed an incantation to fill him with the essence of the real Luke Skywalker, who doesn't exist. And I'm sorry for anyone who thinks it's a documentary. It's not a documentary. They are movies. They are entertainment. You knew that. I know you did. So I would never perform a mouth opening ceremony to fill this with a God's essence and ever give it the time of day. I'll turn my back on it, which you would never do with an idol. I don't sweep the floor in front of it. I wouldn't put food out for him. I wouldn't think that if I don't put out food for him that Luke Skywalker, or the real Luke Skywalker out there, is going to die and the Force is going to be destroyed, because the Force doesn't exist either. Oh man, I'm gonna lose my sci-fi membership card. No, there is no such thing. Anyway, you see Hulk today. I like this one. It's a new one. Okay. When I see one of these shirts on clearance, I just have no... I have no willpower. Alright. Especially Hulk. I like Hulk. Alright. Yeah. He's a toy. He's a toy. He's a grown-up toy. Can't even play with him. Oh, let's go back. I gotta tie the bronze serpent to Yeshua, Jesus. What's the most famous verse in the Bible? What do you see at football games? You see John 3:16. So I want you to always think about John 3:16, and then I want you to go backwards a few verses. So we're going to talk about John 3:14 and 15. All right. Just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the desert, it's this week's Torah portion, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, so that whoever believes in him may have eternal life. The serpent in the desert. Anyone who was bitten and dying because of their sin looked at this serpent on a pole and was cured. And John, which is probably, it is definitely the most Jewish of all the Gospels. It's written at a very, very deep, midrashic and sod level. I would never think to teach it to you guys, because it's all very mystical and very symbolic and that kind of stuff. It's really an advanced book, and I don't know why they give it to people to read right away when they become believers, because it's very hard to understand if you don't know a lot about Jewish writings. It only seems like it's easy to understand. In reality, it's not easy to understand. But anyway, right there, John is doing something that's very common with Jewish writings. He's taking something that happened, and he's showing how symbolically it represents Yeshua, Jesus. Okay? Very cool. All right, so discipleship moment. What to do when you're bullied. This happened to me yesterday, big time. Okay? Twice. And it's on social media, so, you know, I mean, really they can just use words. It's not like somebody was like, gonna pound on me, you know, and I'm less than 5'1". If you're gonna pound on me, you're pretty lame. You know, it's like, there are, you know, most of you guys are probably all taller than me, and most of you definitely will be someday. Sorry, I've been having throat problems all day. Okay, so, a lot of bullying just comes down to words, all right? Most bullies really won't go farther than words. Words are the most common form of bullying. Words or humiliation, that kind of thing. And I'll tell you something. When I'm on social media and somebody uses really nasty words against me, what do you think I want to do? Well, I want to use those words right back. If they take cheap shots at me, I want to take cheap shots at them. If they're being sarcastic, I want to be sarcastic. But you know, that's the enemy at work. Okay, and there was a time in my life where I just, oh man, you did not mess with me when it came to words, because I was going to destroy you. You know, I would destroy you so heavily your children would be embarrassed if they weren't even born yet for generations to come, all right? I was that scathing with my words, and I did it when I was a believer too, which I'm not very proud of. Anyway, so yesterday I got bullied, okay? I don't call it persecution because, you know, people, there are just people who have bad character all over the place. And if they're not doing it for religion, they're doing it for politics, they're doing it because you disagreed with them, or they don't like the way you look, or the color of your hair, or, you know, sometimes they don't even need any reason at all. They just want to hate somebody, and they want to feel better about themselves, and they enjoy it, okay? But what we always have to look, and we have to say, what are they doing to me? How do they look in my eyes? Do they look like a big shot, or do they look like, you know, nasty? Do they look ridiculous? And then we have to think, you know what? I'm a believer in Yeshua the Messiah, in Jesus. The Bible is the book that I have told people that I live my life by. We know from looking at the crucifixion of Jesus, and especially the illegal trial that was held at the home of the high priest, that they were slapping him, they were spitting in his face, they were pulling his beard out, they were humiliating him, and you know what? He didn't retaliate. He wasn't being like them. And so, you know, I know it's hard, but I would be really, really, really proud of you if when people acted that way towards you, that you wouldn't act like them. Because I expect more from you guys. I do. I tell people all the time, your guys' generation is so important. So important. I believe the only reason that I'm alive is to teach your generation and to prepare you guys to do amazing things. You know, I believe in you. If I didn't believe in you, I wouldn't spend all this time studying, because I don't minister to adults anymore. People who minister to adults, are just too many of them. And you guys are important to me. You guys are the ones I believe in, not the grown-ups. I believe in you. And I believe you guys are going to be doing amazing things. And I believe you guys are going to have the best character that any believers have ever had to have in the history of the world. And it's probably going to be harder than a lot of times in history. Not as hard as some, but harder than others. I believe in you. I know you can do it. I believe that when you guys grow up, you're going to remind me a lot more of Yeshua, our Messiah, the living image of God, than anyone born in my generation. And next month, actually in like 3 weeks, I will be 48. So that's a lot of people. I have more faith in you than I do with people who are between 40 and 50. I do. Okay? I know you won't let me do. Anyway, so that is Context for Kids this week. Torah Portion, Chukat. And next week, I think we're doing Herod the Great next week. Yeah. Oh boy, he's a piece of work. We're going to have fun. We're going to have fun. So, I love you. I'm praying for you. And I hope you have a wonderful week studying Scripture together as a family. Take care.